Welcome. Welcome everybody to the Northwoods Kindred Podcast. I'm Bodvar, the chieftain and Gothi of the Northwoods Kindred. We're going to have a fun one today. I guess it's kind of fun. It is my 9 things I wished I'd have known before I committed to Asatru. And it's more for fun. Of course, some of these things I did know, and maybe some of these things you did too. Some of them have also changed over time, because remember, I've been on this path for just at 30 years. I came here at 9. I found this way in 1993. In doing that, there's been a lot of changes on this path, with the religion as a whole, the people that are practicing. Those things have changed considerably in the last 30 years. But I want to cover just kind of like my things that are, I wished I would have known a little bit more about. That's probably a more accurate way to say it. First thing I want to do is cover a little bit of housekeeping. And the first part of that will be, I want to direct you guys to my website. While I've been Asatru a long time, I've also been a knife maker, just a general craftsperson. I make these Thor's Hammer Fire Strikers. This is a ferrocerium toggle, so you take the thing and you scrape it together and get some sparks to make a fire. That came from my seer training, or my training as a seer instructor. So all of that has kind of come to a head with some of the products that we make. I've also got some really cool rune sets if you're into that. SarabaHardwareLLC.com, and if you sign up for the email, you get a discount. So sign up for the email. Promise I won't bother you with anything other than a sale or something cool for you. And you sign up for that, you'll get an immediate 10% discount code. You can use it on hammers, you can use it on knives if I have any up, which I don't right now, but I will soon. You can use it on rune sets, you can use it on leather goods that my wife makes, everything. It's pretty awesome. SarabaHardwareLLC.com. Another thing I'd like to kind of include with the housekeeping portion of this is join our Discord. So we have a really, really great Discord community where we can discuss topics like this one. We also have a channel for video recommendations where you can recommend topics here for the podcast, or topics for videos for future use, or just in general, just throw ideas out. There are other members of our Discord that have Norse-related podcasts, Norse-related YouTube channels, and TikTok channels. All of those resources, I allow them to post their links to their own personal things that they've created on there too. So you kind of get a little bit more of a feel for the community. And most importantly, our Discord community is really, really laid back, super inclusive. Everybody is welcome there. Everybody's allowed to be who they are. You'll get no ridicule. You'll get no scorn or scoffing. But you will get experience. You'll get some lessons learned from people that have been on the path for 2 weeks to people who've been on the path for 30 or 40 years. They're all there on Discord, as well as, a really good opportunity to communicate with us off and on whenever. We're not on there a whole lot. We don't stalk the site and babysit it. We have really, really good people that take care of that and keep it nice and clean and neat for us, and we appreciate them. And then lastly, if you want to support the podcast, since right now it's in its infancy, it's not creating a lot, and it's a bit of a chore to put together, we have our Patreon that supports the podcast and as well as the YouTube channel. It's just a little bit, and it's got some bonuses that come with that. So by all means, jump on that. One of them is names in the credits. And unlike some people, we put the names at the beginning and at the very end. So you'll see them come up here. In fact, I'll put them up right now. So as I'm talking, you can see the names of our patrons that are in the tiers that get recommended. And then, of course, they'll come up again at the end as well. Also want to throw a big shout out to Garboard Music for our intro music that was written and recorded just for us here at the Northwoods Kindred. That song is called Northwoods Kindred by Garboard Music in Norway. So, all right, let's get into the list. So the first thing I wish I'd known before I committed to Asatru, number 1 is racism. And I don't want to overemphasize it. I put it out in the front just to get rid of it so we can get through it, because we know it's going to come up anyway. I just want to get it out front and get rid of it. So let's talk about it for just a second and explain why it's probably not as dominant as people make it out to be. So every religion, any kind of an organized religion or even a disorganized one, is going to attract certain types of people. And some of those people are, racist, and they're going to be attracted to it especially something like Asatru, because of its warrior roots. In fact, the Icelanders, they kind of just denounced the whole warrior war-based mindset altogether in favor of something a little bit more peaceful, which, if you want to get technical, that's really the evolution of our Viking kin, is what the Icelanders are kind of doing. I tend to personally lean heavily in the direction of the Icelanders, even though I am retired military. But my point is that, in myself and other members who are in the military, like, once you've done your time, you're, in a lot of cases, you're kind of over the bravado and everything. And I'm capable of it. I've played in that arena long enough. It's just not my favorite place to go. So I tend to lean a little bit more with the Icelanders on that. But I do understand that that's going to attract those sort of bravado-bound, the Nutsi types, because it was attractive to the Nutsi types in the 40s. So really it's less about, I wish I knew that was here, because we know it's here. We know it's in all sects of all religions around the world, really, that they're all going to have that. Like the Christians have large racist groups, and the KKK is primarily a Christian organization. Of course, YouTube's never going to let this thing go anywhere because of all these words I'm using, but I'm just going to have to get through it. So the Christians have that. And even, we'll say the Baptist church has those Baptists that was it Westboro Baptist Church? The ones that were like picketing veteran funerals and just being a general nuisance and starting fights and trying to get hit so they could sue and get more money. I don't know what their agenda ever was, but there was certainly a brown stain on the mattress of Christianity for sure. And so are the KKK and other organizations like that. They have their stuff too, but they don't tend to focus on it like we do. And they certainly don't put everybody into that category. And I'll tell you, I'll give you an example, is like, if you were to just dress up, put on your best, and roll up into church, nobody's going to automatically assume that you're racist. When you come through the door, nobody's going to be like, hey, dude, how do you feel about people of color? How do you feel about trans people? Nobody is going to automatically assume that you are the worst of the worst. They're going to give you the benefit of the doubt until you prove to be an asshole, in which case then they'll deal with you accordingly. We don't do that here. And that's one of the things I wished I would have known. I wished I would have known that you have to lead with your politics if you want to have a community, if you want to have any kind of a conversation about the religion. I don't think that's right. And of course, I'm playing it up a little bit more than it actually is to make the point. You don't obviously always have to lead with that, nor should you have to. But it seems like in a lot of circles within this, TikTok being one of them, all of Norse talk, you have to almost lead with who you are and what you believe before anybody can even take you seriously. Never mind the information, never mind the sources, never mind the facts. If your politics don't align, you don't align. And then no matter what you say, it's always going to be twisted and contorted until you can say, hands down, I am not that person you're looking for, which even then they're like, that's exactly what that person would say. And it's really kind of toxic, really, in the whole thing. But we're going to push on, but we all understand what I'm talking about. And the other one, the next one we're going to push to, number 2, is right along the same lines. So, and that is the toxic relationship between people of Asatru. We'll call it class warfare, even though it's not technically class warfare because it's not really a rich and poor thing. It's more of a click thing. So if I click with these people, and people that don't click with us, all of a sudden their opinion is irrelevant, their sources are false, their practice is contaminated. It's a very toxic way for us to grow our religion. And I know people, well, we don't have to grow, we don't have to prophesize, people will find their way here. You're right, they will find their way here. And many do, and many have found their way here. And that's brilliant. I love that about the way, that people can just find it. But depending on what path you took to get here, people will judge you for it. And I don't like that. So I guess we can call that a class warfare. There's a lot of things like that there's a lot of slander. If people don't 100% agree with your message, or you deviate from whatever their norm is in their clique, you deviate from that slightly, you are an uneducated asshole, a buffoon, you have an ulterior motive, you're a racist, a homophobe, a misogynist, a da-da-da-da-da. And you can just keep saying all the ists and phobes that there are, and you're one of those. It's super, super toxic. And it doesn't actually help us grow this any, because everybody has to worry about what side of the fence you're on. So I'm pretty sure that by now everybody knows where we're at with the Northwoods Kindred, but I'll say it again just because we're not racist. We do not take part in any of that identity politics stuff. And in fact, I do get a little flack here and there, especially like in private messages, because I'm not engaging in some of the obviously baited drama that's taking place especially on TikTok and occasionally on Facebook. I am by law bound to stay out of other people's business. And the few times that I have actually crossed that boundary and engaged with someone or picked a fight or whatever on these platforms, I've had my pee-pee spanked by my kindred, because while I'm the chieftain and Gothi, I'm not in charge here. All I'm doing is driving. They're telling me where to go. So I understand my role pretty well. And the class warfare part of Asatru is something that I have a really tough time with. It's almost like as you transition from place to place and space to space, you always have to declare your intent, declare who you are. And every time we do that, it takes our attention away from the gods. No longer can I focus on what you're saying until I can learn who you are politically and socially and decide if that aligns with me. And if it doesn't, then you can go away. That's a curse that Christians don't seem to have. But what I do see is that they tend to treat each other like a friend first. But when you walk into a religious establishment or a religious event, people put on their Sunday best, and they treat everybody fairly well. So I know there's like this big anti-gatekeeping movement in Asatru, and there should be. Nobody should tolerate it. We shouldn't tolerate it at all, but we shouldn't tolerate it on either side. Like, I think most people, it's a very personal path, but it's funny that you can do something and somebody can have a differing opinion. You can actually start a little war where people are taking sides over the way that you do something, or the way that something was done in a video, or the way something was interpreted. And that's all very much a class warfare mindset that is in Asatru. I wished I would have known about that from the beginning. I don't know that it would have changed my mind. When I came around in the early 90s, these weren't issues. Like, if you met another person wearing a hammer, you guys were friends. Like, let's talk first and then we'll figure it out. As we've seen lately, especially on TikTok, that doesn't work. It just doesn't work. We're drawing conclusions, and we're putting labels on people that they don't necessarily deserve, and we're not taking the time to get to know people before we do that. And I've been kind of the subject of some of that too, and it's not fun. And I have chosen in most cases to just simply ignore it. I won't acknowledge it. I try not to combat it. I try not to do anything. If I see it, it's just like, whatever, and then just move on, because I don't want to take part in the class warfare, because we start slinging mud, my kindred's going to tell me, stop it, knock it off, fix it, and get back to the business of sharing the business, not engaging in class warfare against other Asatwar. That's not what we stand for. And you're by law bound, I'm by law bound to not engage in that kind of stuff. So when people, hey, if you're doing it, stop. When people are sending me videos like, what do you think of this guy? I think he's an asshole. Well, it's not my business. What do you think of what he's saying here? I think he's saying it. If that's what he believes, then that's his path, not mine. So put that one to rest. Class warfare is number 2. The second thing I wished I would have known before becoming an Asatru. And, also it wasn't like that at the very beginning. It came with computers and in our internet, but also what came with the internet was an expansion of our groups. Like, we're getting big, right? We're Asatrus everywhere. So we have a lot more Asatwar running around. That is a good thing that came with it. A bad thing that came with it is the fact that we have to constantly prove ourselves over and over again. I mean, I have well over 200 videos on YouTube, and easily over that on TikTok, and zillions of Facebook posts on different groups in my groups, and dozens of conversations out in public networks here and there. And I still get those questions, and I still get people asking, where do I stand on this, and where do I stand on that? And so it's just one of those things that I guess comes with the internet, and it's something we're just going to have to muddle through and navigate it any way that we possibly can. But hey, let's try not to put that on people who are getting here for the first time. So if you can agree with that, you should probably subscribe, because we'll probably get along pretty well. Number 3. Now we'll get into some actual real good stuff. Number 3, so few sources. So, when you pick any religion, and they're going to have a stack of books that they tell you to read. Now, we got a lot of books. We got a lot of scholars working on making new ones, but they're still all kind of coming from the same sources, right? The same base sources we have. Well, I guess I can just run down what the basic base sources would be. Symbology Edda, which is the Elder Edda or the Poetic Edda, the one that we get most of our stories from. The Havamal is a portion of that. Those are all one source. And then we have Snorri's Edda. And Snorri's Edda, the younger Edda, is more of a, I guess you could call it kind of a roadmap to the gods and their dwellings and their pets and all that other stuff. Because I think Snorri's Edda is a little bit more of it has kind of some overlap. It has some of the same stories, although they're a little bit different. We'll get into that in a second. But it's really a roadmap or a guide for poets of the day, so they can use these kennings and these various different names for Thor and Odin and Frigga and Freya. Freya is also known as, and then there's a list, and then Thor is also known as this, and this, and this. So they know that when they're composing poetry and they need to accomplish that proper alliteration or rhyming pattern or whatever they had to do with their Drottkvet style, then they could pick one of these kennings for the name of a god or a place or a thing and use it so that they could accomplish the right, poetic meter that they were shooting for. So Snorri's Edda was written for that, and I think he just used the history of the gods and that flavor of storytelling, because it's, for one, familiar to him being an Icelander, and for two, a little bit of national pride. So Snorri would have wanted to collect and save some of those stories, because what are you going to write poetry about, if you're not writing it about heroes and gods? I think that was sort of his motivation. Of course, I'm just guessing here, because that was obviously long before my time. But everybody else is just guessing too, because a lot of people discredit Snorri's work because they want to say Snorri was a Christian, which he was. Most everybody at that time was a Christian. And Snorri, they say that because he was a Christian, he was trying to belittle the gods, change the stories, change the things. And I don't see it that way. I know that Snorri's Edda differs in some places greatly from Symbology Edda, but that's just a product of the telephone game. Like, that changed over time, it changed over place, it changed from different people telling it. I had no doubt that some Christians retold the stories and changed the facts of the case to reflect either poorly on the gods or positively on Jesus or whatever, or just injected him there where they didn't need him. I have no doubt that took place, but I don't think that's what Snorri did. I think Snorri just recorded it as best he could. So I think that's really where his Edda was, where it faulted, really. It just faulted in because it collected information, and that information may have been faulty before it even got to him. But I think he did that out of patriotism and out of Icelandic pride, and he was just trying to preserve a little bit of the history of the people before it was entirely gone. And I, for one, thank him for it. I don't know that we would know much as we do if it wasn't for Snorri's Edda and his other contributions, like the Heimskringla, which is highly political. I am sure that at that time he was trying to connect the lineage of kings back to Odin with the Yngling saga. And I'm sure that he took some creative liberties in doing that, and he probably was richly rewarded for it. But that doesn't mean that there's not a lot of truth in there, too. At least pretty far back. Obviously, it's going to get really subjective when you start connecting earth kings to gods. There had to be some leaps that were made at that point, but I think that was done for political reasons, but it doesn't make the document useless to us. It makes it just one of few that we have that we can bounce it off of other documents of the day, one of which being the Sagas of Icelanders, which is a collection of poems And then, I don't know, if you see the big, thick Sagas of Icelanders book that you can go buy at Barnes & Noble or on Amazon, that's only about 18 or 19 of the tales and sagas. The main base ones like Egil Saga and, Leif Erikson or Eric the Red or the Vinland sagas. So there's only, it's got the base ones, but there's a lot of other little sagas and tales that were recorded during that time. As a matter of fact, I have the complete set, which is the Sagas of Icelanders, the complete Sagas of Icelanders with 49 tales. So it has about 49 tales and about 49 sagas. Like, there's about that many when you consider that tales and sagas combined in that big, thick book that you can buy is somewhere in the neighborhood of 17 to 19 sagas. We'll just call it 18. I think that's pretty close. But that's not, 89 or 90 sagas. That's a lot of sagas. That's a lot of information. So that's a really good source too. It's a new one to me. It's not one that I've had my whole time. We've had the Poetic Edda, we've had Snorri's Edda, we've had the Heimskringla, the Sagas of Icelanders, and I'm sure that the complete Sagas of Icelanders has been around a while. I just didn't know about it. And then you've got kind of like sub-sources too. Well, besides that, we have the Vinland map and the Tartar relation. We have the Journal of Tacitus, a Roman historian, and he kind of equated all the gods to Roman gods because they kind of believed sort of along the lines that all the gods' pantheons were the same. They differed slightly from region to region, from people to people, and their names changed, but they were all essentially the same family of gods around the world. They just went by different names and had slightly different things attributed to them. So he references all of them as Greek gods or Roman gods. We also have the Journal of Ibn Fahlan, which is he was an emissary to the north from Baghdad, I believe, at least if you believe the 13th Warrior story. And he kept a journal of some of his trappings, and I believe that's his journal is reflected slightly in the opening scenes to the 13th Warrior movie with Antonio Banderas, and then it kind of morphs into Beowulf, which is, an English poem. And then we have random little bits and pieces here and there, and you get some pieces that are dragged off of runestones and whatnot. And then you have another patriotic work by the Dane Saxo Grammaticus, or Saxo the Learned, the first Danish historian. So, of course, he's going to have some patriotism towards the Danes, and so he's going to really kind of elevate their role in whatever things that he talks about. He's going to kind of elevate the Danes above the Norwegians or the Swedes or the Icelanders or, whomever. And then little trappings, little bits and pieces of runestones or something. So there's little bits and pieces like that, but I wouldn't necessarily call any of them sources. For sources, we just have our main source text, and that's where a lot of everything else comes from. Now, we've had some good scholars over the years, people like Du Chaillu and the Brothers Grimm and Rydberg, that dissect those sources and put the pieces in a different place and decode some of the kennings and some of the mysteries. So they're good too, and they're good materials to study, and they have good foundational information that can help move your practice forward and help develop new rituals and standards and stuff. But as far as sources go, they're very, very few. And so that's where we're at. And so we don't have a whole lot of sources to base a lot of what we're doing on. And then there's a lot of people who are rigid about stick to the sources. I kind of want to make the point that the sources aren't 100%. It's debatable. Even the Icelandic sagas, there's so much sensationalism in there, such as Finnbogi the Mighty, killing that brown bear with his bare hands. And I'm pretty sure he stripped off his clothes too, like in the little cartoon thing of Beowulf. So Finnbogi the Mighty actually did that. And, well, it's recorded. So did that happen? I don't know. And that's not the importance. That's not the real wealth in it's great. I mean, it's great to read about that kind of heroism and, and just kind of relish in the fact that these people existed, whether or not it's true. But I think the real value in the Icelandic sagas, either the complete or the summarized, the short version, is that not so much that this dude did this thing and it was amazing and nobody else could do it. It's not really that, because that can always be sensationalized. All the other background stuff is very accurate and it's very real. And that kind of information is stashed away in these sagas and in these old sources. And I think that that's where the real value lies. We don't care if Finnbogi wrestled a brown bear to death. In fact, even in his own tale, when he's telling stories of, or people ask him, are you the Finnbogi that destroyed that brown bear without weapons or whatever? And he's like, it doesn't matter because you can't do it. So I mean, that was essentially his reply at all times. It doesn't matter because you can't do it. How did I do it? It doesn't matter because you can't do it. Is that real? I don't know. Probably not. But everything else that took place, that set the stage for that to happen, the way that the king's men rested up early because they had a hunt the next day, those kind of things are real. Those are the only way that you could make that tale of him fighting a bear make it feel real is if all the supporting evidence, the backdrop, was real. So that's kind of a cool thing about those sources, and that's kind of how we have to look at them and read them. But we have very few to go off of. So we have our subset of sources, which would be, Rydberg and Grimm, things like that. And then later on, translators and interpreters, I don't consider sources. I don't consider these New Age books. They might tell you all there is to know about shamanism. That doesn't mean that they actually studied it. And I'm not trying to bag on any particular authors or whatever, but the New Age books they're literally everything they know was either UPG, unverified personal gnosis, things that are true for them and their practice, but not necessarily historically accurate or true. So it's either a UPG or it's their interpretation of what is in those previous sources that I mentioned. And we have so few sources. So really, if you focus your practice around the sources, you will get farther faster than if you focus your practice learning and unlearning stuff from books like The Rites of Odin or Ralph Blum's Rune Book. You learn that stuff first, and then you got to unlearn it. So that's one that I really wished I would have known from the very beginning, were just a list of the base sources, so I could have got them and started my practice there instead of buying New Age books off the shelf at Barnes & Noble. All you could find was those books in the New Age section of the bookstore when I first found it, and that's all we had available to us. So we learn a lot of things, and then we have to unlearn them. And it's like, that's not the way it is. Or that didn't come from the sources, that came from these douchebags over here. And then, so you got to kind of learn and unlearn and learn and unlearn. So one thing that I really, really wish I would have known is the base sources that everything else is based on. And then a couple of the sub-sources like Grimm and Rydberg and Duchaillu that I can go back to and reference. So few sources. The next one took me a long time to learn and still suffer from occasionally, and I'm sure that a lot of you do too. Unless you're a total sociopath, you probably suffer from some version of imposter syndrome. And that is that feeling, and it's not unique to Norse paganism. It is in every skilled trade, religion, everything that has some sort of a hierarchy between people who know what's going on and people who don't. There will be imposter syndrome. So imposter syndrome is where you feel like you're running a scam, you're running a ruse, and any time now people are going to find you out. Maya Angelou wrote 14 books or something, and every one she was like, this is the one. When I publish this, they're going to know I'm a fake. Even Albert Einstein thought that people were making too big of a deal about him. And really, because a lot of this, this physics and mathematics came so easy to him, he felt like a fraud when people would elevate him and essentially venerate his knowledge of, the things that he accomplished, and things like the theory of relativity to him just seemed simplistic. And he didn't feel like it warranted him to be put on some sort of a genius pedestal. In any way, shape, or form, you can't do something. I mean, I do it too. I feel it too sometimes, especially with like the Mindgodis. And like that very first Mindgodi, if you've seen it on TikTok, if not, I say go back and watch it. I tagged it at the top so you can see it. But that's the very first Mindgodi, and it kind of blew our TikTok up out of nowhere. And I was like, am I ready for this? I mean, like, I don't know any more than the rest of these people. I mean, I've been doing it a long time, but, and I've read a few books, but what do I know, And I really kind of beat myself up over that one video because you might catch it, but I say, It's about like, what are the names of the dwarves that hold up the sky? So I tell a little bit of story. I mispronounced Ymir's name. I said Amir. And then, what else did I do? I said, the dwarves' names were, Nordre, Sudre, Austre, and Vestre. North, east, south, and west. And Nordre, Sudre is north-south. So I said north, south, east, west, Nordre, Sudre, Austre, Vestre. And then I said north, east, south, and west instead of north, south, east, and west. Either way, it may seem trivial, but I did it. And I was like, the whole time this video is going boom, 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 boom. And it's just climbing and climbing and climbing. This is when we had a small channel and maybe a couple of thousand subscribers. And, we would get, 40, 50 views on a video. And then all of a sudden this thing's taken off. And we're 30, 40, 50,000 views, 60,000 views. We're getting, 20,000 subscribers, 30,000 subscribers. And we're like, oh, man, I don't know if I'm ready for this. And I just did it all wrong. And I made an ass out of myself. And all the time I'm like ready to just kind of take it down. But I don't want to take it down because it's growing and it's building the channel. But it ended up being a blessing in disguise. I do know what I'm talking about. I have been here for a long time. But sometimes when you make a little mistake like that, especially when the trolls are hanging out there waiting for it, right? When they find something like that and they call you out on it, you're like, whoa. But that's imposter syndrome. And it creeps in on everybody. The best way to combat it is to know what it is and know, hey, this I'm just doing what everybody else does. And I'm feeling less than or feeling like I'm, not what people are giving me credit for. I never thought that that's something that could happen on a religion. I never thought that you could be an imposter with the religion. But I talk to people all the time and they're like, my goatee split and now I have to do this and I don't know what to do and I don't know how to do it. And it's like, well, you guys ever been to a bloat? You ever done a bloat or a ritual? And they're like, yeah, I've been to, a dozen of them or whatever. And it's like, just do that. Just do that. Like, I'll walk you through it. I'll help you get through your first couple. I got some videos. I'll talk to you on the phone. I'll do what I got to do. And I help people through that. But the imposter syndrome, they're like, I am not a God man. I am not a goatee. I am not the person with the connection to the gods. And that makes them feel less than. And that's not how it should be. And I never really considered that would be it. And I even really didn't even consider it for myself until I was far enough down the path. I never had a problem when I was just a practitioner, when I was just some dude that happened to wore a hammer and read about the gods and venerated them, because most of that time I was on active duty and I didn't know anybody else really until considerably later, around about Y2K time frame is when I started to actually mix and mingle with other heathens in the world. Before then, as far as I knew, it was a couple of people who wrote some New Age books, and then me was the only people that were doing this because we didn't have internet and stuff like that. Yeah, so imposter syndrome is a thing, and some people suffer from it greater than others, and you just have to know it. Like all you can do is use, where do you feel when you start to feel that imposter syndrome? Where does it come in? Where do you feel it? And where can you improve yourself? Because I no longer look at it, because it does, it hits me. I feel like an imposter as a dad sometimes. It's like, why am I doing it? Like, who the hell ever gave me permission to raise kids? Or if I'm hunting, I'm a trained guide. Sometimes I'm out there and I'm acting like a goof, or I'm making too much noise and I feel like an imposter. Like, it comes on in random times, anytime that you're working in any kind of a skilled environment. So I take it as, when I feel like an imposter because of something that I did or said, or something somebody called me on, or something that anything like that, when I feel like I'm an imposter, I think that that's just my brain telling me that I need to work on these certain areas. So this area is maybe one that needs to be expanded more. And one of the things that I found, and we'll cover it a little bit more later, was I learned to ask more questions. I learned to answer less questions and ask more questions. And I will get to that in a minute when we talk about one of these other numbers on the list. So imposter syndrome is real. People suffer from it, and people have to deal with it. And you might have it too. That first time when you lit a candle and poured a glass of wine for Freya, and you're like, I feel like the gods are just going to burn me to the ground because I'm screwing this up. I know I am. I don't know how to do it right. I don't know how to do it wrong, but I feel like I'm screwing this up. So that's when that imposter syndrome really kicks in for, I think, just like the average heathen, eclectic, any heathen really, anybody trying to figure out this path because we don't have the information. So I think in those cases, that's probably where imposter syndrome is going to creep in the most. You're not making Mangoli videos. You don't have to be like a leader in the field, a Gothi or a Gidya or a influencer at all in order to feel like you're an imposter, especially when you're trying to act in front of the gods. These next ones are going to kind of go online with that. I put this one ahead of them because I really want you to understand as I talk about some of these other things, any of them will make a person feel like an imposter, but you don't have to feel that way. The gods are forgiving, and you got to understand that they give us, if they wanted us to do it perfectly, they would have given us the ability to do it perfectly. In a lot of cases, they did with our intuition. So if we follow our intuition, we're only doing what they taught us to do, what they gave us. They gave us the ability to intuitively do what feels right. So if we do that, we're not imposters. We're only imposters if we start doing shit that doesn't feel right, doesn't feel natural, and doesn't feel like it venerates to God. It just feels like it's for pomp, circumstance, and show, like a Catholic Mass. If it's something like that, and it feels like it's for show, then maybe you should probably not consider yourself an imposter, but evaluate and learn more about the ritual practices, or at least think and meditate on what feels right for you as a veneration practice. And then I think that you can defeat it. You can use it as that. When it sneaks in and it says, hey, you're an imposter. Why am I an imposter? I can learn in that area and not be an imposter. I can do better. So that's a really good kind of a lens to look through it, because it's going to come in. Unless you're a complete sociopath and you give zero shits about what other people think. So if you're that person, you think no matter what I do, the second I touch it, it's golden. You probably have something else going on up here. And in kind of, in a way, that goes back to the class warfare one too, for some of those people that feel that if you disagree a little bit, you are 100% polar opposite and deserve to burn in hell for the rest of your, celestial existence. So they're out there, man. I'm telling you, you disagree on one little point. I could say the rainbow is a red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, and they can say it's red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet, and I should burn in hell for all of eternity because I got the name of the color wrong. That is how people are on this path, and that's the extreme left and extreme right. They're different sides. There's different wings of the same bird, the bird of intolerance and abuse. Imposter syndrome is a thing. You will experience it, and if you're any semblance of a functional human being, you're going to experience it in one or two areas, at least in Asatru, but in other things that you do, no matter what. Like you could be hired on as a security guard and feel like an imposter. I'll tell you what, going through the Marine Corps, I pick up staff sergeant and get promoted. Now I'm the platoon sergeant in charge of a sniper platoon, and we're getting ready to deploy to Iraq. You tell me I feel like an imposter. I've never been anything more than a team leader and an instructor at school, and now all of a sudden I'm running a platoon. That's a big charge when something like that. And I'm not only am I running a platoon, but I'm taking them to a war zone, and I'm responsible for the health and safety of all these men, who I got to deliver back home to their wives and kids. That's imposter syndrome, on steroids right there. But all you can do is be like, where do I feel weak? What makes me an imposter? I can find those things, I can track them down, and I can learn how to do that particular part of the job better. It's a mechanism that's in us. And I think that the only problem is we interpret it wrong. We interpret it as criticism, as that inner self criticizing ourselves, instead of interpreting it as a mentor playing coyote mentorship and trying to teach us something to better wherever we're putting our focus, such as our religion or our job or whatever. The other ones are going to back relate to that. So that was number 4. Number 5 is going to be start ritual early. And this isn't necessarily one I wish I'd have known. I wish I would have started a little bit earlier, but I didn't know what to do. See, now we have at least some resources. We have YouTube, and, of course, our channel is here to help, and we have Discord channels and lots of other people showing you how to do rituals and stuff like that. We're in kind of a better place now than we were in the early 90s and the 80s and, farther back, where people were just trying to invent it or put the pieces together with as many different eclectic pieces as they could to make a whole ritual out of the deal. So I think we're doing kind of better now. And I would say for any new pagan, like if you've been on the path a week, start doing ritual, like figure it out. We got videos on our website. Certainly you'll find I have a playlist over there called Getting Started in Asatru. Like, that's the one you need right there. It's going to teach you how to do a solo bloat, how to do a group bloat, how to do a feast blessing, how to do a summel, how to bless tools and weapons, how to take an oath, like all, asavatni and naming ritual. All of those are in that one playlist here. So if you haven't already subscribed, absolutely subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you're listening to this on some other RSS feed, subscribe there, sign up for the RSS feed, and then go back to YouTube and subscribe to the YouTube channel, because there's a lot more going on there than just this podcast, which, at least if you go there, you can see my pretty face and whatever backdrop I put behind me. But start ritual early, even if you're only a week or so on the path. Start doing it early. My first ritual was a year and a half, maybe 2 years into my path, and it was right out of the rites of Odin. This is not a place where I would suggest that you begin, but for lack of anything else, it's a decent outline. But if you need an outline, I got one on my website. Go to my website, survivalhardwarellc.com. I mentioned it at the beginning. Yes, I sell some of my cool handmade stuff, but I also have free downloads there. So just bounce around till you find them. There'll be a download for the gods and goddesses of Asatru. There's a download. It's essentially just a little leaflet flyer that you can write all over, and you can learn how to do ritual right off of that flyer. At least a basic bloat ritual is right there on that flyer. Easy to use, easy to modify or adapt for your personal practice, and I think you'll get a lot of mileage out of it. All you got to do is add it to your cart, click pay, which the amount will be $0, and then check out, and then you can download the PDF, print it off, and put it in your pocket. Leave it at your local church. I don't care. Spread it around. But start ritual early. And I say start ritual early because the only way to get comfortable doing ritual is to do ritual. You can sit around and read books and pontificate about ritual all you want, but you're not going to get comfortable enough to do it in front of people until you start doing it privately, and then occasionally in front of a couple of people. It is, if you're not the type of person who's ever really kind of been in a position where you are, I guess we'll call it a front man, like a teacher or somebody who can stand up and deliver an address or talk to people. If you get stage fright when you got to talk to more than 5 people, you're probably going to get stage fright trying to do a bloat for any number of people. I don't have that problem because I went through a formal school teaching me how to instruct by Marine Corps standards. Those kind of schools where you actually learn strategies from, college level instructional strategies kind of help you get over that hump. And at least in the Marine Corps, from day one, you're teaching classes. I don't care if you're in boot camp. If there's no drill instructors around, you can damn sure bet that one of them kids is up there, and they're going over their general orders or something like this. Everybody's got a rotation. Everybody teaches something. And in most platoons, everybody has classes they have to teach. You've almost always got a class in your pocket, a stack of index cards with a rubber band around them, so that if anybody, they're like, hey, I got to go to the company office. Lance Corporal Williams, get out here and teach these guys about survival fires. You got about 30 minutes. You better know what you're doing, man. So you can go up there and you can kind of BS through about 10 minutes of it, but then you're going to have to teach something. So you always have a class in your pocket, and you just kind of get used to just talking to people. You got to have a little bit of confidence. So I got that from the Marine Corps, so I don't have any problem either sitting here and flapping my gums based on a list of 9 items, or doing the videos and talking to people in general, but certainly not when it comes to conducting actual ritual, formal ritual out in my way. But you got to do early. Start doing it. Even if it's not great, don't worry too much about it. Just do it and get it over with, because the gods don't expect us to get it right from scratch. They gave us the ability to think our way through these problems. So let's think our way through these problems. Let's use our own intuition to fill in the blanks. So you can bet that our ancestors in history, we might know little bits and pieces about how a bloat was conducted, but the rest of those gaps were filled in with intuition. And everybody probably did it similarly, even if they didn't have contact with each other, because they used their intuition to get from point A to B to C. The distance in between it was all done by what felt right, or what we would call today as a UPG. I think UPG is a very important part of our path. You can't really have a whole practice if you're afraid to UPG and fill in the blanks between the things we do know and the things we do have. Always stay fluid. Always be willing to change if we get more information about how it was done, you can always be willing to change the way you do it to include that information or to get that one baby step closer to the way they did it. But in the interim, just make it up. Just do it. The halls of Valhalla are full of warriors, accomplished warriors, but they all failed. At one point, they all died, and they ended up in Valhalla. So they're up there training to do better. And every day, they fight, they die, they come back to life, they eat, they fight, they die, they come back to life, and they keep doing it over and over. Why? Because the gods, Odin specifically, knows you don't get it right the first time. So go out and learn. Try, fail, and try again. Don't worry about imposter syndrome. Don't worry about you not having all the facts. Do it and let your intuition be your guide and develop your practice for yourself. And like I said, I have created the flyer that's on our website to download and all those other things to help you with the basic accepted structure, but feel free to take that and flip it on its end and do it backwards and forward. And you're not going to get any judgment from me because you took that flyer and twisted up the way that I do it to suit your own needs. You'll never get that from me. Go do what you want to do. But in the lack of any other better information, it's a good place to start. And it's a large step ahead of where I started. Again, these are the 9 things I wish I would have done or I would have known. And one of them, I wish I would have known that it's okay to conduct ritual from day one. It's okay to start doing ritual without knowing what you're doing. So that's one of the things I wish I would have known. You don't have to choose just one God. If you're new here, you just left a path, most likely, where you had just one God. Maybe if you're lucky, you had a Father, a Son, and a Holy Ghost. That's almost polytheism, right? Maybe not. I don't know. But you don't have to choose just one. One of the things I did as soon as I became Asatru was I was like, I gotta have my God and I gotta have my goddess. I gotta have my one of each, my go-tos. My ride or dies. And of course, at that point in time, being that I was an active duty military, I chose for myself. They did not choose me. I chose them. I chose Tyr and I chose Freya. But I will say that throughout my career, I've maintained a fairly close relationship to Freya. But I'd say throughout my career, I've probably been closer to Heimdall, because he's the teacher, more so even than Tyr. But I chose him based on me and what I do, even though obviously Tyr, patron of warriors, whatever, but more that my patron is the ones that I look up to. They're the ones I emulate. They're the ones I try to live up to their example. And of course, I could very much say that Tyr and Heimdall are my patrons because, the truth is I venerate Heimdall even more than I venerate Tyr, but I always look up to Tyr as the example for honesty and integrity and willingness to do what other people won't, willingness to put myself out there and take the criticism or let the wolf chop off my hand, as the case may be. So I've felt that that's the standard to live up to, but I feel like I'm trying to do that while also emulating Heimdall and his absolute no regard for thrall, carl, or jarl for their station in life. He treated all of them equally, and he taught them their place and their role without any kind of bigotry whatsoever, like thrall. They don't need my help. They'll just do what they're told. I'm going to go start with Carl and then do Jarl. Like, he didn't do that. He did what he was supposed to do, which he taught them their place and station in life and how to live their life to be fulfilled and happy. See, people miss that. Heimdall didn't teach a Carl how to be a Carl so he could be a Carl and rule. He taught him how to be a Carl so he could be fulfilled and he could fill his role that the gods assigned to him or the Norns assigned to him at birth. That's why he taught them these roles. So I feel, if you kind of see where I'm going with this, I feel closer to Heimdall in a lot of cases than I do with Tyr, but I think I made a good choice. But you don't have to make the choice. You don't have to choose a god. When you start twisting things that should be associated with one of the gods or goddesses of the Aesir or the Vanir, and make it fit another god because, like Loki, because they're the one that you chose to be your prime deity. Now you're basically playing with monotheism. Now you got Loki and Hela and Jormungandr and Fenrir, so you're you're one step up from the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. You got the Father, the daughter, and the holy shit. Look at that dog. You know what I mean? So that's kind of like the thing. And I'm not here to bag on anybody. I'm kind of having fun with it. But I want to say that don't feel pigeonholed into choosing just one God, especially early on. Just feel the need to engage with all of them, express your try to just come from a place of purity and see the blessings that come in for what they are, and then maybe make offerings to the God most likely to have contributed to that blessing, or multiple gods that contributed to that, and just kind of feel your way around in that respect before you commit and you say, I just got here 2 weeks ago, Loki's my dude, I'm going to get a tattoo, I'm going to get, Jormungandr tattooed around my neck, and then you're kind of pigeonholed into it. You're kind of stuck with it at that point. Don't get stuck doing things that you don't necessarily may not translate to the long view. The long view is that we have a lot of gods, we have a lot of goddesses, and they all deserve veneration for one phase or another of your life, and the good things, and even some of the bad things that happen to you, because every bad thing that happened is not a product of chaos, and it can generally lead to some really good stuff. The seventh thing that I wish I'd have known when I first found Asatru. I wished I'd have known there were so damn many symbols. And better, I wished I would have known which ones are good and which ones are bad. Because I am absolutely guilty of using the wrong symbol before I knew that it came from this place or came from that place. Now, obviously, swastika, I'm sorry, guys. I hate to say it, but we're not getting it back. It is obviously a symbol that was used around the world with all kinds of different cultures and all kinds of different religions. But it is forever tainted. I hate to say it. I hate to say it because it is a beautiful symbol. And it used to have a very powerful and useful meaning behind it. But some things you can't come back from. And I'm afraid that's one of them. But there are other things that we can use. We don't have to give up our runes, all the runic symbols. So you have 24 Elder Futhark runes, and half of those are bastardized. But there are modifications to some, like the Footed Othala rune. I would have never known the distance. It took me years before I could distinguish between a Footed Othala. I would have thought it was just from some other runic alphabet. You got two different ings, right? Two different ingbas. Various different variations of Ansus. They got different names and stuff too, but they all kind of mean the same thing. So there's a lot of different variations that aren't necessarily nefarious, but there are other ones that are. And there's so many symbols, so many ancient symbols, sun wheels and, Odin crosses and black suns and swastikas and runic symbols. And lately it's just a plethora of bind runes, all those symbols and everything. I wished there was a handout that said, don't use these, you can use these, but you can only use them in certain circumstances, and you can only use them like this. And obviously, I'm not trying to tell you can or can't use any of those symbols, but I'm saying that some of those symbols, above and beyond others, will definitely get you attention that you don't want, and sometimes attention that you didn't intend to get because you didn't really understand the history of some of those symbols and the ways that they were perverted or used or even created from scratch that look authentic and old but aren't really. I wished I would have known more about the symbology of it, and also wished that there would have been a book that just kind of laid it out. It's one of those things. People ask me that sometimes too. Do you think we'll ever get these symbols back? They try to take things away. They try to take our hammer away because skinheads are wearing it. Well, skinheads are wearing crosses too, and they're also wearing pentagrams, and they're also wearing all kinds of other stuff. They are our Westboro Baptist Church. People in Westboro Baptist Church are wearing crosses, but all over Oklahoma, Southern Baptists are not taking their crosses off because of Westboro. You know what I'm saying? So we don't have to either. And if this offends someone, this symbol offends someone because they attribute this to them, then I can't wear it. I don't buy that. I'm not buying that lie. I know about the symbol. I know where it comes from. I know how it was used historically, and I know how it was used in a more modern sense. And I don't think that this is perverted so much that we should have to take them off or hide them. We should know what we're wearing and be able to talk to people about it without taking offense, because there may be some person who's like, I seen a skinhead wearing that, and I don't like it because I'm Jewish and my grandfather was in an actual internment camp during times in Germany, and I don't like that you're wearing something that symbolizes them. In that case, it's a good opportunity for me to stop what I'm doing and say, hey, let me give you a little bit of history on this symbol and why it is okay for me to wear it and why it's not a hate symbol and it's not a bad thing. Whether we like it or not, those people are here. We have to deal with them, but we do not have to use their symbols, but they don't get to use ours either. We get to take these symbols and we get to hold them tight. Hold them tight and don't pervert them and don't be part of the problem when we could be part of the solution. So pushing it a little bit farther out, one of the things I really wished I would have known when I first started is that you will generally get what you ask for. If you're asking for something, you will generally get it. But the law of a gift for a gift is in full effect. So if you ask for something and you ask correctly, there's a good chance you're going to get it, or you're going to get some portion of it, or the ball is going to start rolling and end up in your court for you to do your portion to make that happen. You're not going to say, I wish I had $1 million. Freya, give me $1 million. Or Njord, give me $1 million. And then you're going to do a bloat and you're going to do a ritual. They might lead you down a road where you can create a company and develop that, but there's still a cost, even though you got to do the work. So you may get what you ask for, but you're going to have to pay for it in some way, shape, or form. Sometimes that cost is high, and sometimes it's more than what you bargained for. And I don't want to beat this dead horse, but I do want to say that when you ask for something, whatever that's worth to you, you're going to be paying that as well. Just know our gods have a generous hand. When you ask and when you receive that, there's a cost, and you're going to have to pay that cost. And they're taking it out. They're taking it out in spades if they have to. So, you will abide by the law of a gift for a gift. It is a law. It is a law. It's a law of a gift for a gift. It is not a rule. It is not an idea. It is a law when you're dealing with the gods. You give, you receive. It is an equal exchange. And if you ask and they give, you better be ready to be willing and ready to pay for it. That was not told to me early on. I have asked for things along the way, and I have paid some dear prices to get them. Prices that I wouldn't have asked if I would have known the cost on a lot of things. So use their attendance to us very carefully. And number 9, the last thing that I wish somebody would have told me that I would have known before committing to Asatru is that everybody does it differently. And that is not only okay, that is the way. Everybody does it differently, and they do it for their own reasons. This path is, since it is a very personal path, you can be as eclectic or as rigid as you want to be. You can venerate gods from different pantheons and put them here together. Not my choice, but I'll certainly show you how to do it. It's not the way that I practice, but I don't judge people for it, and neither should you. You should practice your way. You should be unapologetic about how you do it, and just know that everybody does it differently. Some people have a different take on everything. You put 10 pagans in a room, you're going to get 15 different ideas, and all of them are going to be polar opposites of one another. How that's possible, I don't know. So everybody does it differently. It's not only okay, it is the way. And now as I wrap this up, I want to remind you one more time. If you're here on YouTube, slide down into the comments. There's a link to my website, survivalhardwarellc.com. You can get cool stuff like these Fire Striker hammers, cool leather gear that my wife made. Really, 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 really neat, good stuff too. Really super high quality. We use high quality leather. Everything's hand stitched. We don't even own a sewing machine, at least not a leather sewing machine. Everything is done by hand. All of the metal stuff and fire steels and strikers and necklaces, all that kind of stuff, everything's done by hand. It's all artisan work. So visit Survival Hardware LLC. If you're here on YouTube, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Absolutely share this. Share this with your groups, your list, your friends, your fans. Share it around. Get the name out there. Let us help people. And join our Discord if you really want to kind of get deep in the weeds on some of these topics, and you want to get in there and discuss it with people who are out there doing it. Like, they're doing it right now. They're not sitting around pontificating about it. Like, we got people that are brand new on the path and people that have been here for 30 or 40 years, and we're all talking about bloats and symbols and offerings and carvings and crafts and traditional dishes, cooking, and because we love to eat. I'm sure our historic counterparts also love to eat. So visit us on Discord. We have a Facebook group. We have a TikTok channel. So just bounce around the web. All of that is in the link tree, which is down below, and it's in the banner on YouTube. And if you are here on Spotify or one of the other RSS feeds, if it has show notes, if they come with it, they're down there waiting for you, and just bounce down into the notes, check that out, and there'll be some links to various other things, including those pamphlets you can download at my website, and anything else that you might need. Absolutely love you. Thank you for hanging out with me. I hope that you enjoyed this program. I hope you got a little bit of a insight as to how it changed over the years and how the practice has changed, but some of the wished I hads or wished I had knowns are still exactly the same as they were before our information overload of having the internet. So the one thing that hasn't changed is that when we start out, we're confused and we're looking to people for information, and a lot of times we learn that information, we have to unlearn it because it is not true to us, to our path, or to our way. So be true to your way, be true to yourself, be true to your tribe, and I'll see you on the next one. I am Bodvar, the chieftain and Gothi of the Northwoods Kindred. Þórr viki, my friends.